Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is the Tara.
The Tara.
The Tara, yes.
Greetings, citizens.
It's like it's an acronym, like your computer system. The
Tara 9000.
The terabit analytical
Radar apparatus.
Yes, there you go.
Automaton.
Yes. We are a science fiction movie podcast. Every week we watch a science fiction movie, we get together, we talk about it, and it'll usually last about an hour to 2 hours, something in there, and we'll do that. We are going to be talking about another time travel movie. We have been every so often doing a time travel movie. The idea is that eventually we'll do a top 10 time travel movies list. So this week we are looking at Time After Time. Sorry, actually, let me redo that. This week we are looking at Time After Time.
Yep. Just like the final countdown. Can't help yourself.
I know.
Get it out of your system now.
Although, actually, the song wasn't in the movie, was it? Was the song not released until after this movie? It might not have been.
No, much like the band Europe was inspired by the film The Final Countdown to write the song, Cyndi Lauper wrote the song after she saw this title in like a TV guide or something.
You're taking the piss, right? She didn't actually say that. I know she didn't. Hold on, I'm looking at Wikipedia here. Time After Time was released in 1984. The song, that is, because this movie is 1979. So, yes. So it's funny that again we have a movie where there's a song from just a little bit later. Because again, Final Countdown was like 80, and then obviously Final Countdown by Europe was mid 80s sometime. I don't know what year it was, but a little bit later. So I think that's funny. That's funny. Also, I'm glad you knew it was Cyndi Lauper because I couldn't have told you that. I don't know who Cyndi Lauper is though, because she does the Goonies song, and she does Girls Just Want to Have Fun. I know those are Cyndi Lauper.
No, she doesn't do that song.
No? Who's that?
Girls Just Want to Have Fun? Isn't that like the Go-Go's?
I'm Googling it. Girls Just Wanna Have Fun song.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Cyndi Lauper. Point for Peter.
Okay.
Yes, 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 yes.
You win this round.
Beautiful, beautiful. Anyway, I just got lyrics for Time After Time, so I can do more of it later. So, because I don't know the lyrics off the top of my head. I know Time After Time. I know that part. I know the rest of it. You don't mean song lyrics.
If you're lost, you can look and you will find me time after time.
Yep. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting.
I'll be waiting.
Is that how it goes? Okay. I don't know the tune for the next part, alright? So
I don't know if I do either.
It just repeats those two bits again. So there we go. We've got the song out of our system. So this is a film.
It's over.
It's over.
On to the science fiction.
Onto the science fiction. Of course, it's a time travel movie. And what's really funny about this, before we even get to the very notable cast that are in this, and I'd never seen this. You'd seen this before we were younger, right?
Mm-hmm. So
it's funny how we just did The Time Machine a little bit ago, because The Time Machine, of course, is about H.G. Wells, and it's actually based on the book The Time Machine. This actually has a similar kind of start-up and almost where H.G. Wells has got friends round. It's like 1897, and he's got friends round to tell him that he's built a time machine. And I was getting these weird like flashbacks. I'm like, I just watched this movie. What's happening?
Yeah.
Obviously, the premise.
It's a little bit of a remake.
Yeah, the premise from that point on though gets vastly different, because instead of going through the future and ending up like far in the future with the two tribes, whatever they were called, I'm sure Tara remembers. I don't know.
The Eloites and the Modocs.
Well, that sounds
Morlocks. Modoc is a
Marvel
X-Men
thing,
right?
yeah. No, that sounds right. So instead of going way into the future, though, he just comes to at the time, present day, 1979, and the twist here is that one of his friends just happens to be the person, because obviously Jack the Ripper is a famous story. No one really knows who Jack the Ripper was. He was never caught. So the joke here I say joke, you know what I mean. So the premise here is that his friend John is Jack the Ripper, and he's found out at this dinner party. And because he's already showed them the time machine, Jack the Ripper makes a beeline for the time machine and comes to present day. And H.G. Wells, fearing that he has let a monster loose upon a world that doesn't wait for him, especially in this movie, because he thinks that the future, like, he's only a few generations away from a utopia. Yes, he thinks that by the time we get to 1979, there'll be no crime, no violence, no wars. It'll be just a one big happy place.
It'll be Star Trek.
That's what he's hoping for. Yeah, he's hoping for Star Trek. And unfortunately, we were not quite there then, and we're still not quite there yet, unfortunately. But that's what he's hoping for. So he thinks he's aided a monster into a world that's not prepared for him. He basically, actually, better comparison, he basically thought he'd accidentally enacted the plot of Demolition Man, where he'd sent a criminal from his time into the future where they wouldn't be prepared because they don't have criminals anymore.
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, I'm proud of that comparison. So he gets to the time machine. There's a contrived plot explanation as to why the time machine actually comes back. If you don't have the key, it'll like bounce back to its starting point. That's just there to justify why he can then follow him, because there's really no reason for it otherwise.
Well, he doesn't have to.
Yeah. So he goes to 1979, and the movie plays out in 1979, and he's hunting Jack the Ripper in modern times. Calm down, Foxy, it's okay. And he has a love interest. He runs into Amy, who works at the bank, and the three of them are the main characters who go throughout the film. Notably, the cast here, we have Malcolm McDowell as H.G. Wells, who you may know from A Clockwork Orange most famously, even though I know Tara's dying to jump in with, but Star Trek Generations.
He's Soren! It's Star Trek Generations. Yeah, so have you guys reviewed that one yet?
Not yet, because we're doing that after we do Next Gen.
Isn't it also sort of an original series?
Well, it is, but it's also post all of Next Gen in terms of Picard stuff.
It's going to take so long.
I know, but you want us to do the whole show, though, right?
Yeah.
We'll get there. So we have him also from the shitty Rob Zombie Halloween movies, is where I have a distaste for him.
He's kind of unrecognizable in this too.
He's pretty young, plus he's got the big mustache. I mean, I could see it was him, but
you can kind of hear it. But
yeah,
I didn't register it right away. He's still like young and cute with like hair color. I just see him as this like white-haired evil guy from, you know what he's from?
Mm-hmm.
The Wing Commander games.
Oh yes, you're right.
And we have two Wing Commander alumni in this movie.
We do, because the next guy I'm going to talk about, Jack the Ripper, he's played by David Warner, who was in Jack the Ripper, in Wing Commander. But of course, I knew him because I brought this up in Wing Commander. I know him from a couple of different things. He was in the Supergirl movie. He was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze, which, while those might not sound like big movies, they were big in my childhood. Okay, so.
Well, you know which one's big in my childhood?
Star Trek 5 and 6.
Star Trek 6, he's Chancellor Gorkon.
And Star Trek 5.
Don't let it end this way. He's that guy.
Yeah, but he also plays a human in 5. He's in both.
Oh, he's in 5?
Yeah, he plays a human in 5, because I when we got to 6, and I recognised him as a Klingon, and I went, wait a minute, he was in the last one as a human.
I should rewatch it. I love 5.
I know you do. So, and then we have the love interest, Amy Robbins, played by Mary Steenburgen, who I know from one thing and one thing alone, and that is Back to the Future Part 3.
Similar characters, huh?
Kind of, in a way.
She has a type.
Although, it is worth mentioning, I was shocked at some of her dialogue in this movie. It's aged in an interesting way, let's just say. We'll get into that in spoilers. Which obviously we're starting spoiler free here. I didn't say that already, so spoiler free for now. I also saw her pop up as herself in Curb Your Enthusiasm, because she's Ted Danson's wife, if I remember right.
That is correct.
Yeah, so that's our three main cast. There's also a cameo from a very young Corey Feldman, years before he was
instantly recognizable.
I know, it's weird. He's like 5 or something in this. Oh, I mean, obviously he was. When we get to like the Goonies and
This has to be his first movie.
I mean, it's early there. It's definitely early on in his career. Because obviously most people know him from, at least as a kid, from Gremlins and Friday the 13th Part 4, which were 84 and 85. No, we're both 84, now that I'm thinking about it. So, yeah, so he's like, he'd be probably older than 5. He's probably like 8 or something like that in this movie. But, you know, it was funny seeing him.
He's really young.
He's only in one scene.
I would think like 4 or 5.
I mean, yeah, but he's more than 10 when you get to Gremlins, though, right? He's a bit older than that in that. He's more like 12 or 13 in that, right?
I don't remember.
You know what? Let me just wrap this up because I've already.
Do we have to settle it?
I've proven you wrong already. So he was born in 71. So let's say they shot it in 78. He would have been 7 or 8, depending on what part of the year.
He's so tiny.
He's tiny. He's got a big head though. He's got that big Corey Feldman face on this little boy's body. It's kind of funny how his face has not really changed all that much in 40 years.
It's funny how like the scene comes up. He's got like one line, and I think it's just "Mom," and instantly I'm like, "Is that Corey Feldman?" Oh my God, he's small.
Yep. And I'm just going to check actually, since you asked if it was his first movie, I might as well. Well, I'm on his IMDb page. It's not. It's actually his. He did one movie before. He was Boy Fisherman #1, and he's done 2 TV movies and 1 TV series before Time After Time. So, but wow. This was his biggest so far.
The director also has done Star Trek films. He wrote 3 of them and directed 2 of them.
Whoa! Oh, Nicholas Meyer. Yeah, I don't know that if I checked the name.
I was looking him up. He's mostly just a writer. Like he really hasn't directed very much, but he did direct Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country.
Yeah, and this is before Wrath of Khan. This is a few years before. This is the same year that Motion Picture came out. This one, so yeah. Look at all these Star Trek connections you're getting.
I know.
It's not fair. It's not fair. So, yes. Well, I guess we've set up the premise of the film. It's H.G. Wells is chasing Jack the Ripper in present day after coming from the end of the century, and of course, a lot of the movie is the fish out of water. Him, a lot
of it's comedy.
It is, and we'll get into that. But Tara, did you enjoy Time After Time? Sorry, Time After Time.
I did enjoy Time After Time.
Joe, it was the same in see for a long time in the TV news. Was it TV? No, it was the movie news. There was a movie coming out called I Think We're Alone Now, and every time it came up in the news, I couldn't help but go, I think we're alone now. Like every time, I couldn't not read the title without doing it. So yes, so you liked it. You had fun with it.
I did. Yeah, I like it. Exactly, I had fun with it. A lot of the comedy works for me. It is a bit down memory lane because I have seen this movie before, and I think I've seen it a few times because not a lot of it looked new to me when I was watching it. And I really like the performances, especially from Malcolm McDowell. I think he really sells it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was enjoyable as well. I don't think it's a great movie. I think it caps off at good and never becomes great for a few different reasons. I think because the movie actually opens with a sort of tense like POV Jack the Ripper scene like in 1897, and I thought that scene was actually pretty cool, and it almost made it feel like it was going to be more of a thriller, right? But then most of the movie is this comedy of like fish out of water stuff. So when it comes back to try to be threatening again towards the end, it kind of like, yeah, you're not going to get me back now. Like you've turned it into a comedy. Like I don't feel tense.
I think it's a really interesting premise to have like H.G. Wells be a time traveler, and like seemingly that's where his inspiration came from, and have also a Jack the Ripper plot in it. Like it's a bit bizarre, but I think I don't know, I think it works pretty well. I don't love the performance of David Warner as Jack the Ripper because maybe for the reasons you say, like it seems a little bit like jarring. Because it doesn't seem like maybe it's supposed to be in the same film, since we are watching almost a family-friendly comedy, and then all of
Well,
a sudden we have to deal with a serial killer.
yeah, it's funny because I would have liked a dark version of this. I think a dark thriller version of this where it takes itself a bit more seriously and doesn't have as much of the comedy. I think I could get into that. I think I'd be really into like the threat of like the serial killer from the past, like Jack the Ripper's unleashed in San Francisco.
Yeah, we kind of watched a Twilight Zone that was similar. The idea of pulling someone from the past, and it ended up being like, a bad guy, and not realizing it, and what would that do? I do like the idea of having Jack the Ripper in the future and feeling like this is the world for him and what that means.
Yeah, because obviously once they get to present day 79, H.G. Wells' initial thing is that he's shocked that the world is not this utopia. It's actually, if anything, worse. And then Jack the Ripper's like, oh, this world's made for me. They cut up to me. Look at all this murder and death on TV. This is my kind of world. Of course,
I don't want to say too much, just kind of going into the details, but I do like that premise, and Jack the Ripper is a familiar sounding name. A lot of the time travel stuff doesn't really make sense, but whatever, it's fun. I had a fun time watching it.
Yeah, this is before the era where they started to try and work out how time travel works. They just didn't care. It was just do it for the fun stuff, and not worry about the details.
And there's a lot of times in the film where H.G. Wells, who has a time machine, says, "I don't have time for this." And like, yes, you do. We're too late for this. You have a time machine.
Yeah, because the first instinct I would have to do if I was writing a script for this premise is that I would say at some point something bad does happen, and he purposely goes back a few days, so there'll be two of them running around, kind of Back to the Future Part 2 style, where he's then in the earlier part of the film and he's having to avoid himself. But the movie never does that. This is not a spoiler. It just never goes down that path or even thinks about it.
No, he makes one trip and then that's it.
And, which would be fine if he was cut off from his time machine, but he's actually not. He can basically go and use his time machine the whole movie if he wants. He just doesn't. So it's like, okay, whatever.
It's that part is a little. Whenever that came up, I was like, "What are you talking about?" But other than that, the movie's fun. I don't think it maybe doesn't age all that well, but it's still an interesting film from the time it came out. And there's a lot of little details that they have in the movie. We're like, oh, that's smart. That you would include that, because those are details that usually, I don't know, studios or writers are like, the audience won't think about that, but this movie does.
No, it's a fine movie. I think it I don't think it deserves to be called a classic or anything like that, because it's not. I think there's a reason why it's not that known these days. It's not something that people bring up. It's not something like Back to the Future or or even just non-time travel stuff, just stuff from the end of the 70s. I think there's a reason why when we think of 79, we're thinking about Alien, we're thinking about other movies. It's kind of obviously we watch a lot of movies, right? We watch a lot of movies that are coming out today, and we see a varying quality from great to bad to a lot of mediocre and whatever else. And the funny thing about movies from years and years and years ago is that typically only the ones that have at least a big fan base or some kind of fan base are the ones that stick around, because you hear about them, because they've endured somehow, because people care about them. And people care about Alien, people care about Back to the Future. So it was just really easy for us growing up to find those, because people will say, no, you have to watch these movies.
Yeah, those movies are a lot bigger than this one, though.
Well, they are, but this is the thing. If this had hit, if this had been good enough to be remembered and get that kind of audience, because what I'm basically describing here is this is a solid, fine movie, but the reason why no one remembers it is because it wasn't good enough to actually have a lasting impact, I don't think, on enough people.
I think older people do know this movie, though.
Do they?
Yeah. I mean, this is a movie my parents both knew really well and, shared with me.
Yeah, I guess. But I don't know.
It was probably a summer film that people saw and went, oh, that was actually pretty good, and not, depressing, and had a good time and went and watched it again. But, not a classic like Alien. Sure, that was like revolutionary, but I don't know. I think a lot of people do know this movie.
I mean, maybe I've never heard anyone talk about it. Like, I literally, you brought it up, and the only reason why I even knew it existed, or even knew had enough ideas what it was, is because CBS tried to make it into a TV show a couple of years ago, and I saw that pilot,
Oh yeah,
and it was not good. They cancelled it after like 3 episodes. It was terrible bad, but
I don't like that phrase
because it sounds like Tarabad. I know, like I'm saying Tarabad, terrible and bad, Tarabad.
You need to. I think you just need to abandon that phrase. It's not a catchphrase, is it?
That's not a catchphrase. I use it from time to time.
Time after time. I'm just gonna look it up.
You're gonna look what up?
Movies 1979. My freaking cat.
I can hear him.
All right, the first one on the list is Alien, then Apocalypse Now.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Then the Muppet Movie.
Sure.
Warriors, Kramer versus Kramer, Being There. Okay, maybe it is far down the line. Black Stallion, China Syndrome, Motion Picture, Rocky 2, Amityville, Life of Brian, Phantasm, Escape from Alcatraz, Mad Max. Actually, 79 is a pretty good year.
What we're saying is that I've just achieved a hat trick, except this one was an own goal because Tara did this to herself.
Nosferatu and A Stranger Calls.
Oh, I love Nosferatu. Oh, A Stranger Calls is not bad as well, actually.
Dracula. Time After Time. I found it. It's like number 30 on there. I'm sure a lot of people know it.
So let me ask you this.
I'm exaggerating, but it was pretty far down the line.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. Do you think the 30th movie from this year will be remembered in 40 years' time?
No, because we only make garbage now. We have like one good movie a year.
I'll take the
which
win.
already came out. I think it was Midsummer. I don't know if I've seen anything great other than that.
Yeah, Midsummer is really good. I've got some on my to watch list that might beef out my top 10 and make it. I feel like it's always November to like February time where I see most of the best films from like the year that's ending, because you know, that's when you hear about what's good. Oscar season comes in, and it's not even necessarily the Oscar movies specifically that I watch. It's just that's when all the gems are found and people are talking about them, and you know, that's how last year at this time of year I was watching things like Eighth Grade and you know, Assassination Nation, and like these are really good.
I guess. I don't know.
I'm sorry, I've depressed you now because I've made you realize just how how much things skew to being mediocre.
Yeah, I haven't really seen a lot of good movies this year.
There's not been many of them. So the point anyway then, the point before Tara wanted to fight me on all of that, is just that it's a good movie, but it's not like great. There's nothing that really propels it to being like you know, it's directed well enough. The performances are pretty good. But I think the script just kind of scratches some of the surface of what the interesting parts of this story could be, and kind of plays it a bit too straight for it to really sort of come home as a like, you know, either something that is just a comedy and really fun, or something that is very visceral. It kind of does this thing in between, but it's generally pleasing to watch. Though it's not a bad experience by any means.
Yeah, sure, and it's, you know, kind of a love story too.
Yes, and what a love story is. So I think with that said,
I like it.
We'll give the spoiler warning. And we will shoot right into it. So before we start the spoilers though, Tara, how can people support us on Patreon?
You can check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. Donating as little as $1 per month will get you bonus episodes that we do. We are going through the Trancers saga. You can check out how we feel about Time Cop, Judge Dredd, all sorts of films. So check it out if you like what we do and want to see more.
Tara, you're a pioneer, because I'm pretty sure you're the first person in the history of humanity who has described Trancers consistently as a saga.
Yeah, well, if you read the back of the Blu-ray cover, and you believe what they write, then yeah, it's definitely a saga. Saga of probably the most important saga ever been put to film.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that, I'll thank Patreon producers, David Sharp, Alison M. Fordas, Cindy Palacios, Tyler Heston, Talking Superman. Thank you for being producers. Patreon producers, that is. So go over to Patreon and see if you want to do that, or just throw in $1 and get some bonus stuff. Every dollar matters and helps. So spoilers then for Time After Time. The movie begins, as I said, with a Jack the Ripper sequence, POV, which I kind of love. We're in old London town, and this prostitute comes up to him and is like, all right, governor, and, all that bollocks.
All right, governor.
And he holds up a coin.
Super British.
Holds up a coin. She's like, oh, you're very for it, aren't you, love? And, takes him to an alleyway. And I actually laughed out loud here for a second, because she's like, she sort of like suggestively lifts up her skirt to like be like, oh, it's time for the nasty business. But because this is 1897 and these clothes have so many layers that I'm like, there's nothing to see. It's just more layers of white fabric.
Ooh, I could see her ankles.
I know, I get that I live in the modern age and I'm desensitized to scantily clad, sleazy shit from every angle. But
sure,
like, I'm just like, there's nothing to see.
I kind of love the performance of the woman though, who's playing the prostitute. I thought she was really fun. She was like super drunk, and she's just basically talking to herself to a camera, and she really plays it well. I don't know. I like the scene.
I like to see it as well. I like that he put out his little locket that plays a little tune, and then he kills her with his blade, and it set me up for like more kill scenes. And I'm not saying I wanted a slasher movie out of this, but like I was expecting more of a thriller because of this opening scene. But after this, we go.
You get the tomato soup splashes everywhere.
Yeah, this is from the era before they got the color of the blood quite right in movies. It just looks a little bit too bright and off. Like it's like so we go to H.G. Wells and he's got the people around, and John comes in late, David Warner's character, and obviously like immediately, because I know what the premise is, I'm like, okay, he's Jack the Ripper. he's like he's off being a surgeon, and it's like he's pretending that he's at work when he's actually out killing hookers. And H.G. Wells tells him about the time machine. He takes him downstairs. Let's talk about the design of this time machine, because unlike the classic time machine design of the time machine, this looks like a fish.
We don't have the big fan.
No, it looks like a fish.
I guess it's true. It's got, instead of the big fan that they have at the back of it, instead we have a, I don't know, satellite dish, so you can get good reception.
It's got a weird sort of bubbly sort of fish look to it, which was kind of weird.
With a bunch of jewels on the side.
Yeah, luckily H.G. Wells is dumb enough to explain to all of them how it works, so that Jack the Ripper can, in a few minutes, come down and use it himself. They think he's full of shit, of course. They don't believe him, but they're back up for drinks or whatever, and the door goes, and it's like, Scotland Yard's here to see you, sir. The maid. I can't do the accents, but I'm going to keep doing it because it's just too fun to try. And he's like, what's the meaning of this then? Kind of thing. It's like, sorry, sir, but Jack the Ripper struck again. Like, did all that.
This scene, I'm sure it's done on purpose, but it's almost like shot for shot. The scenes where they're like together and checking out the time machine, it's almost like shot for shot the movie that we just watched. And I'm sure it's done on purpose that way, so you can be oh, so this is supposed to be how he gets the inspiration to write the book.
Yeah. Obviously until the police show up, which completely changes things.
Where things take a turn.
I will say, I was liking this stuff until the police show up. I thought that the discovery of the bag and then the immediate assumption that this guy is Jack the Ripper felt a bit too quick. Like, it felt like there was maybe some more pacing we could have had here, where they slowly realise that the one they're with, because it'd be like, wait, why is John not here with us? Because you notice in the scene that everyone's came out to talk to them, and like he's the only one who's missing. And then, it'd be nice if they noticed he wasn't there and then like started to suspect him, and then maybe, hey, let's look in his bag, and then found like a blade or something. Like I felt like the police just sort of find it and go, oh, it must be him. Look at these gloves.
I know.
Just immediately.
The fool, he left his blood-soaked gloves in his bag.
So.
Classic mistake.
So they
You'd think
basically,
Jack the Ripper would have been caught long ago.
I know, but so the police escort all the guys home because they're all scared. Even though the guy has literally only murdered prostitutes up until this point, so I'm not sure why they're.
Well, also they're like, okay, we know he's in the house, and they're like, well, we searched the house, and there's no way he can escape any of the rooms. But good luck. We're just gonna leave you alone in the house.
We'll give you an update, sir. If we get anything tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Just like leave a guard there, just in case he's behind a a wallboard or something.
So the maid is like, yeah, it's so weird. You were at the door the whole time, and there's no way out. And then HG gets the idea. He's like, oh, wait a minute, and he goes downstairs, and his time machine's gone. And then of course it comes back though. We get this really dated effect where it kind of like comes back in all these.
I kind of love it though.
Right. Yeah, I'm not saying I dislike it. This type of effect from this era makes me smile because it's like nostalgia infused. But we get this,
all the little scratches on the film, they had to do, or to add the little animation, firework things.
So it appears in front of him, and it's like, okay, so it bounced back because he doesn't have the key. And he's like, well, I have to go and get him. I have to go. I've unleashed this monster upon the utopia of the future. I must go and save them. I do like though that well, this is the thing. So he says to his maid, hey, get me the housekeeping money and give me anything you have as well. I may have to barter in the future.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, I like these little details that they throw in there that I think other films or TV shows even will just skip.
Yeah, I like that too. I do have a bit of an issue though. He goes to the bank when he gets there. We're skipping ahead a little bit, but since we're on this topic, he goes to the bank and he's able to exchange his money, and he says, "This is still good, isn't it?" He's like, "Well, yeah. I mean, I can still exchange it." And I'm like, "Can you? You're telling me that pounds from 1897 could still be exchanged in 1979?"
Definitely.
Really?
Hell yeah.
You can just go exchange.
I worked at my first job was at a movie theater, and kids used to come in with their dad's coin collection. You can tell to buy a movie, and this is a silver dollar. Do you guys take it? I'll be like, yep. It's $1. And then put my own dollar in it. Now I have a sweet coin collection. It happens all the time. Of course, it's I mean, for collectors, which they bring up, it's worth a lot more, a lot more. But if it's just currency, it's currency. I don't think it's out of the question.
That's well, because this is the thing. I don't think the British money he has on him right now, I don't think would be accepted in a store now in the UK, right? So the idea that you can exchange it for dollars in a different country feels even weirder to me, because it's well, no one would accept that in a shop. But that wouldn't be legal tender. I mean, maybe you can still exchange it. I don't know. I've never had to exchange money like this. I've never had old money.
Maybe because you're losing money by doing it. So, and banks like that. So.
Oh sure. Yeah, I guess I don't know. It shocked me. But maybe this is a normal thing. Maybe you can, if you find old money lying around, you can exchange it to your heart's content. Obviously, you have to go to the bank to do it. No one else is going to take it.
I mean, yeah, at a certain point, I imagine you would have to just go to a collector.
Yeah.
But you would have to anyway, because otherwise you're just throwing money away.
That's what I was expecting for the guy to tell him in the bank. I was expecting him to say, oh, we can't take that anymore, but it's actually worth a lot to collectors. You just have to go to a collector and exchange it.
Right. But if it's still the same pounds or shillings or whatever at the time, and it says £1 on it, then wouldn't that still equate to £1?
I guess. I don't know. For example,
that's what he says. He's like, look, you've got $25 here, and we can give you $25 because that's what your money says it's worth with the exchange rate.
Well, for example,
you can go to a collector and get a lot more.
Yeah, but you said shillings there. Shillings don't exist and have not existed since way before I was born, right? Shillings are not a thing in the UK.
Well, I don't know. It's something that I've heard in movies and TV before. I don't really know what your currency.
But that's what my point is, though, is that shillings at one time were a part of the UK's currency, and they aren't anymore. I have no idea how much a shilling is or how many shillings make a pound. So I'm like if I found some shillings Like...
Well, obviously it's 5 Jim Jams make a shilling, and then
I don't know what a shilling is.
And then 4 Pedro Pascals make a pound.
I think my parents, when they were kids, had shillings, but that was like obviously a long time ago now. Anyway, let's shift. Let's shift. Back to the plot at hand, which is H.G. Wells coming to 1979, and he lands not in the same place where he, like, physically in the planet, like in the time machine. He goes to where the time machine is in present day. So there's a H.G. Wells display on at a museum in San Francisco, so he appears in San Francisco. I did like the subtle touch, though, where he noticed that his clock's 8 hours different from or his watch is 8 hours different from the clock. And then when he gets outside and he finally realizes he's in San Francisco, he's like, 8 hours difference, that's why. And I was like, I
like that too.
That's kind of smart.
I don't understand why the time machine moved. Does the time machine only appear in places that it is in the future? And if that's the case, can he not go back in time then? Because the time machine didn't exist before then.
Well, he clearly goes where the time machine is in the future, rules? But he does. Yes, he does. It does snap back to to where it was. Yes. Look, it's not. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I admit. I don't have answers for you. Don't come to me looking for answers. Okay.
Okay.
Jesus. So
I mean, does there have to be an H.G. Wells display in like the year 10,073 or in order for him to appear there too?
Well, in theory, if anyone ever dismantles it, then he can't go past that point because it won't exist anymore. But luckily, because he's this famous figure,
primary rules.
Yes, because he's famous. It's not primary. Shut up.
It's just like primary.
But because he's a famous figure, luckily they like to put it in display around the country and probably around the entire planet, I imagine. So it gets to he's lucky that he didn't end up in a ship. It was like shipping across the Atlantic to like the next country it's going to, and like, oh shit, we're stuck in a boat with Jack the Ripper. Hey, that could be fun actually. Maybe that'd have been a better movie, but but he realizes he's in San Francisco because he sees it in the paper. Because no one wants to answer him. He keeps trying to ask people. He's like, "Excuse me, could you tell me which city I'm in?" Like,
no, he's so cute and so polite, and he's in his little outfit.
Pardon me,
and
ma'am.
Everyone's such an asshole to him.
Pardon me, ma'am. Could you tell me what city I am in?
Excuse me. Do you have any Grey Poupon?
And so he realizes where he is, and he goes to the bank to exchange his money. Only gets $25, which probably sounds like a lot to him, but even in 1979, I'm like, 25 is nothing. Like that won't last long. And he goes to McDonald's, which, I mean, it felt like needless product placement right at first, because he's like enamored with the French fries, and he's like stroking the table. He's stroking the table. However, I'm going to give it a pass because the joke that calls back to it later was worth it. Because he's out for lunch with the love interest, Amy, and he's like, "Oh, this is much better than that Scottish place I went to for breakfast." And I didn't get the joke at first until she's like, "Scottish place." She's trying to think. He's like, "Scottish place in San." She's trying to think if she knows the place. She's like, "Scottish place in San Francisco." And he's like, "McDougal's," and I'm like, "Oh, he means McDonald's."
Yeah, it was a good joke.
That's pretty funny.
I agree. Good payoff.
That was a quality joke. Although I do love that if McDonald's did pay for product placement, I do love that he goes to a proper restaurant later and says, "This is much better than that shitty place."
Yeah, right.
Got their money's worth of that product deal. Oh dear. So there's a lot of like him like just marveling at cars. He almost gets hit, obviously, and he eventually tries to get some jewelry pawned off. Well, not a pawn shop, because that's where he goes eventually, because he can't do it at the actual jewelers because he needs ID. And the guy, I'm sorry, I can't do this unless you have ID. I can't give you, I can't pay you for these.
Right. This is one of those parts where he says it would take at least a week to get this approved before I can give you a check or something. And he's like, "I don't have a week." Like, yes, you do.
Just go in the time machine. You can literally just skip the week and come back.
Yep.
And then, not only that, you can skip the week, get the check, and if you're worried about Jack the Ripper killing people, just come back the week again. Just come back to an hour after you left. Done deal. silly man. To be fair, I'd have to go back and check the dates, but it did say on the H.G. Wells exhibit that it was only here for like this date till this date. There's a chance that this week might have the time machine might have moved to like.
It's on tour.
It's in Texas now. Shit, I'm like I'm thousands of miles away now. Damn
it. Still don't have my money.
Oh dear. Also, I love. I need to call this bit out. I love that when he gets out of the time machine and his glasses are broken, he finds a replacement pair like in the display that they've got his desk, and because he knows where he kept them in his real life, he checks this drawer and there's like a pair of glasses, so he puts his broken ones in and takes out the other ones. I like that how when these people were doing this display, they went to the authentic level of actually getting the right prescription for his lenses. I love that part.
Mm-hmm. Shh. Don't think about it.
Unless they're trying to say that this is literally the glasses from then. But I feel like if they were, they'd be in like a glass case so they don't get like, not contaminated.
And they would be broken unless they were a new pair.
Yeah. Because if you just leave things out, they will corrode and whatever over time. So, but these are just in the drawer, so they must just be a replicated version. But whatever.
It's cute. It was a cute moment.
Yeah.
It's a good laugh.
So he goes to like a CD pawn shop where the guy will give him like much less than they're worth, because he gives him like $400 when it's meant to be like, because the jewelers were like, hey, I can't give you top dollar, but they're worth maybe 6,000-7,000. I can give you $4,000. So he was going to get $4,000 at a different place, but they see the little pawn shop will give him $400. But he only had 25 before, so I mean he's up. He's he can do whatever.
It's true, and I like these little details again, like the. He doesn't have ID. And of course that would be a problem in the future if you don't have ID, or like trying to buy something, and these little details that come up that I think other shows or films would have skipped. Yeah. Of course there's some big ones too that they just kind of wave past and you're like, whatever.
So he's got his money and he can go and do stuff, although he spends the night in the bench first. He actually spends the night as a homeless person, unfortunately. Poor HG. Can't have much about it. But he does eventually get to the bank, because so basically once he realizes that, hey, Jack the Ripper would have had to have done this too at the bank, so he then goes to every bank, and he doesn't find them in the first, doesn't find the right one the first day, because he's going in and out of multiple banks, and he eventually gets to the Bank of London or whatever it said outside, because when he sees it, you just hear dun 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 dun.
I'm surprised Mary Poppins didn't show up also.
Dear. It is annoying how England and Britain as a whole are kind of merged in the minds of foreigners, because that tune has nothing to do with Scotland. It's no part of it. Do not lump me in with it.
Do you have the Queen on your money?
No, actually.
Oh.
I mean, you do get English notes here that are legal and they have the Queen in the money, but all the Scottish notes don't.
Okay, never mind.
We have Robert Burns. We have other people.
William Wallace.
You might be on one. I don't know. I'd have to check. I'd have to actually check who's on all. I'll be. I couldn't name you most of their faces. I don't know who it is. I know which one Robert Burns is.
Those are very easy to remember.
They're all presidents, right?
No.
Oh, they're not all presidents. Okay.
Benjamin Franklin was not a president, and he's on the $100 bill.
What was he?
All about the Benjamins, baby.
Who was Benjamin Franklin then, in the context here then?
I mean, he was still part of like the country finding independence, but he was never president.
Okay. Yes. And John Hancock.
I think he's still considered a founding father, just not a president.
But John Hancock was the first one to sign the Declaration, which is why your expression is put down your John Hancock.
I don't think he was the first. I think he just had like the most flourishy.
Okay, all right.
signature on there.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, maybe he was the first. I don't know.
I thought
not a very good patriot.
Yeah, I thought that's what the trivia was, but I mean, I just
Yeah, maybe it was the first.
Yeah. So he eventually finds it, and this is where he runs into Amy, who was the clerk who dealt with Jack the Ripper. And he's like, hey, was there anyone here like me, British, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, there was, in fact. He had a big money belt, and he was, you know, he was here, and yada, yada, yada. But she's like, hey, and he does this weird thing where he's like surprised. Wait, okay, so can I talk to someone? And she's like whoever dealt with this? And he's like, yeah, you're looking at him. I dealt with him. It's like, but surely there must be a gentleman that I can speak to. And you know, it's this kind of awkward moment, and then he sort of realizes, and he's like, "Oh, I mean, for the record, I was all for the women's what was the word he said?
Liberation.
Thank you. He's like, "Oh, what changed your mind?" You know, so she's kind of like playing games with him. She's always kind of joking with him, though. It never comes across as like actual, you know, like she's like ready to fight him, like for what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's always
a little flirty,
a little playful. And I'm so used to Steenburgen as a sort of middle-aged woman at the very least that it was kind of weird seeing her in this kind of like, you know, mid-late 20s.
Super young.
Yeah.
So smooth.
Yeah. And she kind of gives him her number, says, hey, if you want to come by anytime or need any help.
Yeah, she's like, I know the city. You know, if you need a tour or anything.
He's like, oh, very well, very well.
But I mean, he's so cute and like so proper and so... I don't know. He's adorable.
Which is
I totally get it.
The complete opposite of his character in A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
Complete opposite. So she tells him that she recommended a hotel for old Jack, and he's like, thank you very much. He goes off to this hotel, and he pretends to be room service. He does an American accent for a second. He's like, your breakfast, sir. So Jack the Ripper comes up, and he's opening the door. He's got a new suit. He's got a modern suit
because he can't refuse breakfast.
No, well, he's still hungry. Jack the Ripper got to eat.
Yeah. I mean, even if he didn't order it, he's like, well, I'm not going to turn away free breakfast.
See, I will actually justify that in this case because he's not used to hotels, modern hotels. So maybe he doesn't realize that you have to order it.
Maybe.
You know, I can buy that he's all confused, a little hesitant, sure, but I buy that he maybe thinks in his head, oh, maybe everyone gets breakfast by default, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I could see that. That flies a little bit, but he opens the door and HD's there, and he's like, oh, I followed you, and this is where they have the conversation because he puts on the TV and shows him all these violent images, like, see, there's the war going on and all that. Because that was one of the things we didn't mention. Is the jeweler had like a number on his arm from a concentration camp. So small little dark moment there, but then he even brings up the war, and he's like, yeah, World War II. And he's like, World War II?
Like a second one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it came back later because it was when he was with Amy later, and she mentions that she was at an anti-war protest. Oh, he's like, oh, the Second World War. Is like, no, how old do you think I am? Oh, the third one?
Goes,
the third one?
Vietnam, silly. Yeah, but this is a scene I really like, though. He was talking beforehand the last time he saw Jack the Ripper about how the future... how excited HG was to see the future because of this utopia that humans are bound to achieve one day. And instead, Jack the Ripper turns the TV on, and it's just nothing but violence, violence and war, and all around the world. You see the news from other places, and people are bleeding from their face. And then he even goes to like cartoons, and they're exploding. Cartoons and stuff for kids have the violence. I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty decent point. He said he has a really good line about how like 90 years ago I was a monster, but here I'm considered an amateur. Like, ooh, that's dark.
Yeah, that's pretty dark. So we have this great chase because he's going to try and kill HG. He wants his key so that he can travel to any era he wants and kill people in all different types of eras and so on and so on. And HG puts up a fight. Luckily, the one of the maids or whatever comes in and it scares Jack off. And I actually kind of laughed a little bit. There was a bit awkward acting here when David Warner's running out the room. He kind of flips over the cleaning lady's trolley, but it looks so unnecessary. He just kind of does it because, oh, it's here to flip. I'll flip it.
Hates cleaning ladies.
So
if you were a prostitute, but you're not, so I'm just gonna push your cart over.
But he gets into a pretty cool little chase scene here. I liked how they used some of the bridges because there's like two bridges kind of like sort of like different parts of the street, and they're all both in different ones. So
and you get the two glass elevators as well, where they're like looking at each other through the elevator.
Yeah, there's some good geography here in the chase sequence, which I liked. Yeah. The scene ends when Jack gets hit by a car, and there's like a crowd forms around him, and HG's trying to get to the front, but the ambulance comes and takes him to the hospital. And when he gets to the hospital to find out, who he's, if he's all right or whatever, the nurse there tells him that the person who was brought in has died. He went into shock and died. So he kind of foolishly assumes then that, okay, well, Jack's dead. I can,
Well, he tries to see the body, but
he does
the nurse is like, "Are you a family member?" And he said, "No, he has no family." He's like, "Sorry, you can't just see a dead body. Like,
yeah,
we don't allow that here."
So he just kind of
he makes the attempt.
He makes the attempt. He does at least try and confirm it, but he can't. So he just kind of has to accept it. And he, I guess, kind of stumbles past like Amy's bank again, and she sees him, and it's like, "Oh, I'll go out and go for lunch with him. I'll take an early day and go and have lunch with this weird British man." And this is where the movie's like tone shift kind of happens, because it was kind of funny before this because there was a lot of fish out of water stuff, but from here the next like half hour, 40 minutes is nothing but the romance. It's the comedy and the romance. And that's all it is. There's like one or two little teases in the background to, there's been a murder or something, but other than that, it's just them dating. They go up to the the revolving restaurant up top, and they're talking. This is where we get the McDonald's joke, and she also has a couple of weird lines that have dated really badly in this scene. Where I thought it was weird how at first she's saying, "Oh, I'm all flustered because it's been a while since I've met someone who turns me on," and I thought that's a bit forward, just saying that. But okay, whatever. And then she says, I've not met anyone who's turned me on recently, or I've not met any man who's turned me on recently, or woman. And then she sort of realizes what she's saying, goes like, "Oh, not that I'm a dyke." And I'm like, whoa. And then he's like, "Dyke?" And she's like, "Yeah, dyke, lesbian." Like, okay, language is a bit weird too. You would never put that in a movie now.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if there's like a point where it becomes more derogatory than it was back then, but obviously, because right now it's like a bit. Whoop.
But it also stuck out to me because earlier on in the movie, when she's talking to her friend after, it's either just before she meets him again or just after he's left, her friend at the bank says, "Oh, why are you into him?" And she says something like, "Well, I don't. At least that he's not gay." Like there was another line that was like, and I took that at the time just to mean, because like she's met a gay guy and it's been disappointing because like she was into him. But like,
well, I think it's also San Francisco. That was kind of like the gay mecca.
It was, yeah. No, you're right. Milk and all
time.
That. But like, I just but when that line came up later, I was like, oh god, it's almost like they're building a pattern with her dialogue here. This made me start to think she's a bit homophobic, and
but it is San Francisco. Like it might just have been something that people talked about more. I get that in that area at the time.
Yeah, maybe. So not her last weird line, might I add. Oh, we'll get to the other one soon.
She is she's very forward, and she's very she says turns me on or something more than once to describe like it gets excited about something, and it's just used so casually, which I think is done on purpose to coincide with what HG had said earlier about writing about free love. And he brings that concept back up again too. Like, oh, I wrote a paper on free love, which I guess is more of a 60s thing. So maybe that's kind of a dated element in the 70s or almost 80s at this point.
Yeah, she even says that. She says she's not heard that term since she was in 8th grade. So
right, and he thought he was being like real progressive, but at this point it's not anymore.
No, it's ancient now. Now it's almost archaic.
She's very crude. And I think he's kind of put off, but also excited about it, the concept. I actually really like their chemistry.
Yeah, the chemistry's okay. I think she's kind of an interesting character, or a weird character even, in that she is this forward, but at the same time, I almost feel like she also plays it as kind of like this nervous person a lot of the time as well. There's kind of almost like a what's the word I'm looking for? When two things don't quite jive. A clash. There's a clash almost of like the nervous personality that she seems to have a lot of the time, but then there's these moments of like being really forward and really confident, which I'm not saying doesn't work. I don't
know, I've met people like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it is kind of interesting for a movie character. I feel like very rarely do you get like those two kind of different things kind of coming together like that.
I think she's adorable in the film. I like her. She seems like a very real person to me, like just somebody who's trying to make it on her own and has a job that's usually, male dominated, I guess, because she's kind of having to always justify why she's there as a woman.
Although this is definitely a job that's changed over time, though, because I would never in a million years think of this as a male specific job that she's got in this movie.
Well, she probably has some kind of manager role. Because isn't he asking to speak to like somebody else, like a manager who's in charge of this kind of thing? And she says, "Actually, that's me."
Yeah,
I'm the one in charge of this.
He doesn't ask for a manager. He just doesn't believe at first that she'd be the one with that authority to exchange money. He doesn't actually ask for anyone higher up. He just doesn't think that she would be allowed to do that. I would never even think that this is, and I guess it's just how times have changed and so many. I guess because there's still professions you associate with specific genders. There definitely is.
Oh, sure.
But I don't think working in a bank is one of them. But maybe that's just me, or maybe it's just the banks that I've been in. I don't know. So then they go to the movies, and he's scared of the movies, hiding behind the seats because gunshots and things. Yeah, and she's like, "It's just a movie." There was a weird thing when they came out of the theater. The marquee said Psycho 4, and I thought
Exorcist.
Oh, sorry, Exorcist 4. You're right. And I thought that was kind of weird because there hadn't been any sequels to The Exorcist yet. I think maybe the second one was about to come out when this movie was getting made, so it was almost like a joke you'd do if it was set in the future. Like, Back to the Future 2.
About that too.
Yeah, how Back to the Future 2 has the Jaws 19 or whatever it is, or there's jokes like that. So that's just like a weird thing for me. Like, what's the joke here that there's an Exorcist 4 playing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because there technically is an Exorcist 4 now, but it didn't come until like 2006 or whatever it was. Like, and it wasn't called that. It was called
maybe
Exorcist.
The marquee like wraps around and we didn't see what the first word was. I don't know. Maybe it's like Night of the Living Dead 4. I don't know.
Maybe. Night of the Living Exorcist 4.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, but and then she's like, "Oh, you've got plans?" And he's like, "No." "Okay, I'm going to make dinner for you." So she takes him to his place, makes him
her place, yeah.
Makes him some dinner. Well, he doesn't have a place, so it definitely is her place.
But you said his place.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Oh, I didn't mean to. Slip. It was a slip. Comes to her place.
Just let it slide, but I'm not in that kind of mood today, so.
I can tell. So she makes dinner. He's baffled by the phone and the microwave. Again, there's more fish out of water stuff. I think it's maybe at this point in the movie where the fish out of water stuff was starting to be a little overdone. Like, I'm like, okay, we've had a lot of it at this point. Maybe you could start slowing down on this stuff now.
Well, they're about to like go full romance, so it's not quite over yet.
Well, I know, but I'm saying it probably should slow down. Like, in terms of the jokes about him like not understanding things, just and not because it's not realistic that he'd still be oohing and ahhing at things, but just from a movie perspective, like, okay, we've done the jokes a lot now. We can maybe slow down a little bit. They're kissing on the couch, and he gets he gets a bit nervous and says, "Look, I want to make sure that I'm not, you don't feel like I'm forcing myself on you, and I am." Being a gentleman and whatever he says. I don't remember how he phrases it, but he's being gentlemanly, right? Even though she's the one who's...
Yeah, it's clear they're about to have sex.
Yeah.
He's starting to be like, this is a lot.
And she's the one who started the kissing. She's initiated everything, but he, being a gentleman, is like, hey, I want to make sure you're not feeling in any way pressured into this. And she says, and I quote, "I'm practically raping you," and then keeps kissing him. As he says, "Well, that's quite right." And then they just keep kissing. What?
I don't really find this problematic at all.
It made me do a double take, okay? I was not expecting this line. And I went, whoa. They would not put that in. Because this is essentially... I don't think it's actually PG-13 because PG-13 didn't exist. But this would be PG-13, right? If it was made now at this level. I don't think in a PG-13 you would slip that line of dialogue in there.
Probably not. But I don't think it's that bad.
Okay. So moving on. I have no idea exactly where I cut that previous part, but let's just say there was a whole interruption and we had to stop for a bit. But we have them together. They wake up in bed, and this is when he hears in the news that there's been a second murder. The killer's struck again.
There's been another murder.
There's been a murder. It's the Ripper. He struck again. Now,
by the squirrel girl?
By the squirrel girl. Now,
there's been a murder. Just by squirrel girl.
There's been a murder. I can't. Murder. I can't do it.
Muck duck.
I'm trying to do that accent you're doing. I can't even attempt to do
it. Kentucky?
Yeah, I can't do it. I can maybe do have some change, you filthy animal. What accent's that? What accent's the bad guy?
A made-up movie accent?
Yeah, the made-up movie accent from Home Alone. What's that?
That might... I don't know. It's kind of like old Rat Pack sounded.
Yeah, I think I like that accent just because I love I love yelling, you dumb broad. Now, obviously, I would never...
It's gotta be like Brooklyn or something.
Insult a lady by saying you dumb broad. I just really like the phrase. So any place I can fit it in, I'm more than happy to. It's kind of like when I yell at Tim, shut your whore mouth. I just like saying it to Tim.
Yeah.
I love saying it to Tim.
You can use it on Connor. Not on me.
Noted. I'll use it on Connor. So we've had to stop and start a lot throughout this review, and I am now dreading the edit of it. So I don't
know how long this is going to be either.
There's at least two.
Is this like a 2-hour episode or a hour episode?
There's two chunks that are bonus bits for sure. So that's that. But anyway, so they know there's been a murder, and he kind of says he's hunting this guy, the guy he was looking for. He doesn't tell us from the past yet. He doesn't say he's time traveled yet, but she thinks he's a detective, and she's like, go to the police, tell them. He's like, they won't believe me. And obviously they won't. And, she kind of makes him do it eventually. And the weird thing is that they do just think he's an idiot. And he thinks he's being smart, calling himself Sherlock Holmes, but that's immediately the point when the detectives are just like, uh-huh.
Well, I mean, he's been to, his new lady friend's place, and she only has, Cosmopolitan magazines, and nobody reads books anymore. And I guess maybe he thought that didn't quite cross the pond. Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, actually it's funny because it's kind of the flip of what I expect to see, because there was a time travel series on Hulu a few years ago with James Franco based on a Stephen King thing. It was 11/22/63.
Yeah.
It was about going back in time to just before JFK was shot. I think that was the right date. If that's the wrong date, then it's the date he was shot. And
I don't know.
One of the fun things in that is that at one point when he had to fake a backstory, he just gave the backstory to The Godfather. But obviously no one had seen the movie. It was before the movie came out and before even anyone had read the book, so no one knew he was making all this up. So this reminded me of that, but it was a failed attempt because it was the opposite. Everyone knows Sherlock Holmes because now he's a cultural icon. Everyone knows Sherlock Holmes is. Right. That just made me laugh because it was kind of the flippity flop. There's a great scene where Jack the Ripper comes back to the bank. He has to exchange more money. And now Amy knows who he is. Maybe not Jack the Ripper, literally, but knows he's dangerous, knows he's a killer. And she calls HG, who, doesn't quite understand the phone, but he's able to figure it out for the most part. And she tells him he's there and that he's been there before, and she'll try and stall until he gets there. And I thought this was actually kind of smart in the writing because, she says to him, "Oh, how was the hotel that I recommended?" And he's like, "Oh, it was just fine." And then he just kind of realizes that the only way that he could have found him at the hotel is if he'd gotten it from her, because she was the only one who knew where he'd went. Mm-hmm. And the entire tone of the scene just completely changes. I kind of like that little touch.
Yeah, I did too. It was smart.
Yeah,
it wasn't like she gave something away that he couldn't have figured out eventually on his own anyway. It just gave him the idea of it. You know, he was just trying to make conversation.
Yeah, and that's a fair thing she would ask. If you were someone who worked here and you'd given a tourist a hotel recommendation and they came back, you'd ask them, "Oh, how's the hotel treating you?" It's a normal bit of small talk. And sure enough, He susses this out. He looks her up in the phone book. He's figured that much out. He knows how to look up a phone book. This is something that's came and went. Now the phone book in a phone booth is like a relic.
I know. Well, we got a couple good movies that use it.
You're thinking of Terminator, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Just like every day.
Yeah, Sarah Connor. He leaves a note at the place, and HG's back with her. There's a scene somewhere in the middle of all this where she's driving and he's kind of like paying attention. He's like, "Oh, so this foot goes down and that accelerates, and that foot slows you down." Like he's, he's like analyzing. And again, it's all kind of seeding later that he'll try driving himself and kind of, mostly pull it off. He does crash into the front of the garage first, but
it takes some practice.
Yeah, it takes a little bit. If anything, he actually is a little too good at it too quickly. But whatever. Movie.
Well, at least it's an automatic. I looked. There's no stick shift.
Good to know.
There's no way he would have been able to figure that out.
So yeah, he does that a bit later. He does a bit of driving, but he gets back. There's a note saying, "You'll give me the key to the time machine, or I'll kill her. I know she lives." It's like the threat is clear, and after this, he has to try and tell her where he's from, and she thinks he's crazy, and she's ready to storm off and say, "Never come speak to me again. I'm not having this." And he's like, "Hey, you promised that you would try and believe me." Like, because the day before when she says, "Oh, tell me the truth," he's like, "Oh, I can't. You won't believe me." And she said she would, and she's like storming off here, and she's like, "Okay, fine. You can have a chance to prove it." So they sneak into the museum where the time machine is, and go into the time machine, and he's like, "Okay, let's just go somewhere, quick, 5 days out of the future, or whatever it is. We'll go to Saturday." And they get out, and she thinks nothing's happened because they're just still in the museum, right? Same time of day. It's as if nothing.
They didn't go beyond Jupiter or anything. It was just a split second.
But there was there was one bit of the effect just at the side of the screen.
Yeah.
There was just a little bit of it.
Just one little boop.
Yeah, but they come out, and there's a newspaper, and she goes to read it, and not only is it a newspaper from Saturday, clearly showing they're in the future, it's about her death. It says, 5th victim found, and it's her photograph, and all that stuff. So really good stuff. And Tara, can you please move that camera again? Thank you.
Trying. I don't know what triggers it.
There you go. It does fix those. So for some reason, there's just very specific spots where it will stop doing that stupid white balance auto thing. And for the record, anyone who's going to say to try turning it off, we did. Tara's weird tablet computer hybrid thing won't let her do it. It's annoying as shit. I know.
It has very different settings.
It's very frustrating.
It's automatic so that you don't fuck with it. So you don't mess around with the options. Sorry. It's late.
I have to edit so much of this already. I'm not going to bother editing that out. But consider this a warning, young lady.
Don't fire me.
Wouldn't dream of it. Connors is going to be long gone before you are. Don't worry.
I know.
Don't worry. Connors at
I'm the best.
bottom of the ladder, and always will be. Always will be. So actually, just a mild side note, I've actually got an Ace shirt on the way, and I was hoping it'd be here today so I could wear it for this review, but unfortunately it's not. So hopefully next time I'll wear my Ace shirt.
I should get one of those.
Or a hat or a cup. You can get a variety of Ace labelled things you could have on screen.
I forgot we have a store.
Oh, Joey, you can get like a cushion cover, like a pillow cover. If you go for like a square pillow. Anyway, before that little side tangent, and I'm not cutting that one out. That one's fine. Go. You can go buy merchandise over at the Spreadshirt stores. There's descriptions in the link, people. Get yourself a nice shirt. But yeah, so she's scared, and it's like, hey, we can go back though. We have time. We can go back to before, and we know that there's 2 more victims before you, so we can try and get to him first. We can catch him first. We know the future, and I think this is where her character does fall apart a little bit for me, because when we get to, because they have this thing where they have a smart plan where they're going to go and get him at the nightclub, but they know he's getting his next victim, right? And they don't get it. They get a flat tire, so they can't get there in time. So he does get his victim, and it's whatever. And it's a lot still. It's where it starts to become a thriller a little bit again. It's not super great from a thriller perspective, but it's okay. You know, when you get a close up of the blade and it's just you see the blood sort of like spray onto his face. It's not like super graphic, but it's got a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, he gets the teardrop.
Yeah, the red teardrop. Yeah, it's good stuff. But after that, though, she is really scared and weepy and just scared to leave the house. In HG, all movie, he's been very anti-guns, and he's going to go buy a gun at the pawn shop just so he can protect her. And the natural thing here is that the police, because he was able to predict a murder, the police come after him thinking he's the killer. And he doesn't make it back in time. So she's left on her own, and she just sleeps until it's like time for like her murder. And she wakes up, and she's kind of crying.
She takes a Valium.
Yeah.
To fall asleep, because she thinks she's going to be protected. And he's not able to get to her because he gets arrested instead. And because she's knocked out, yeah, she sleeps like right up until the point where Jack the Ripper shows up at her door.
And there's a big fake out where we think she's dead. Oh, I didn't really think she was dead, but the movie wants you to think she's dead.
There's so much tomato soup in that apartment.
Yeah, because the police come into the apartment because they eventually listen to him enough to go and check the apartment, and there's like a foot and a hand just lying there, and there's like blood all over the walls, and they're like, "Oh, we're really sorry, sir, but you're free to go because clearly you didn't do it because you were here."
Yeah,
so,
even though you confessed to everything.
Yes, even though you confessed to everything, even though we can't identify you, even though there's a bunch of reasons why we could hold you for a while because you're this weird guy who has no record of being here. But you know, maybe it was easier going in the 70s, but these days in the US, when someone who is not American is found and they have no documentation to prove why they're there or they're allowed to be there, they get kind of testy about it.
Yeah, the 70s were different.
Yeah. Maybe it's easier on really posh British men. I don't know. Maybe they don't get as harassed as much for it. But I'm making some political commentary here, thinly veiled.
It could be true.
Yeah.
I mean, you used to be able to cross the Canadian border all the time, at that time, without like passport and such.
Oh yeah, I literally read a story a few weeks ago about a Canadian family who literally took a wrong turn and accidentally crossed the border and are getting like fined heavily for it or getting jail time or something. Like they have to get a lawyer in to help them, and like they took a wrong turn. There was no sign.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Anyway,
trying to get to our great country and escape the tyranny of Justin Trudeau.
You know, we have this big thing where he's kind of just moping around on his own, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Amy shows up, and Ripper's got his knife to her throat. He's like, yes, and she's like, oh, I forgot my friend from the bank was coming over to visit. So the implication being that she's the one who that was the body parts. She was the one who was killed, and Amy's been kept for leverage. And they go to the time machine.
It's a good fake out. I didn't remember that part, so.
It's an okay, because I actually thought it was hallucinating. See, when she was like standing in the distance saying something, I was like, oh, is he like hallucinating? It was
very ethereal.
Yeah, but no, she's there, and
the way she was talking.
They go to the time machine, and there's a bit of a standoff. It's kind of weird how he does just kind of let her go when he's getting into the time machine. There's not like, you know, I was expecting more of a fight, but basically one of the plot things that was set up earlier is that there's like a thing in the machine that if you pull it out, it'll like vaporize the person inside it, which seems like a really weird design choice.
It's really easy to pull out.
Yeah. But he runs up and pulls it out when he's in there on his own, and they're left together, and it's like, okay, well, I have to go back. I can't stay in this time, and she doesn't want to go back because, you know, her work means everything to her. But at the very last minute says, no, wait for me, I'm coming with you, because she's in love with him, which I thought was a weird choice for a character, given how sort of like independent she was the whole movie, and that her life was important to her, and she gave it all up at the end, just out of love for this one dude.
Well, I mean, her apartment is probably hard to go back to now.
True. Also, I have to imagine that her work's probably pissed at her for missing like 5 days. Well, it wasn't 5 days because she was killed somewhere in that 5-day period, but...
Yeah, I mean, she was mistaken for that girl, so maybe everyone thinks she's dead anyway.
True. I will say I'm disappointed that we didn't get to see her arriving in 1897. I thought it was weird how it just went to the credits immediately. They just sort of vanish, and we get like a little card saying, oh, H.G. Wells died in this year, and his wife died in this year and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, he wrote about all the things like the women's liberation and great wars and all these things that he predicted, space travel or space flight. So kind of linking the whole, maybe he knew so much about the future because he went there. I thought it was kind of cute.
To quote one of the words he uses in this very movie, poppycock.
Poppycock. I like the ending. I thought the ending was kind of sweet, and yeah, she didn't want to go back there because she's a modern day woman. And what would she do back at that time? But maybe she does, do something. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I do like the idea that she does have a thing for time travelers, and that Doc Brown. I mean, because let's face it, Doc Brown's a superior match, I think.
I don't know. He's a lot. And McDowell in this film is so cute. He's just like the epitome of adorable man.
I think Christopher Lloyd's adorable.
He's likable. He's much more dangerous.
Like, I have different tastes in time travelers apparently than Tara does, but I would say Christopher Lloyd's a better catch. To actually, just comparing the time machines, to quote Doc Brown, if you're going to build a time machine, why not do it in style?
I do like the train.
Oh, the train's good, yeah. And the DeLorean's cool. I mean, I think an actual real world DeLorean from the time period looks boring as shit because I'm so used to having all the stuff in the back.
It's not that cool. It's kind of small. It's smaller than you think.
Oh yeah, I get why it wasn't really a practical car that kind of survived, the time. Like,
it's such a weird time, like car of its time, and now it's only known for one thing.
Hey, there's plenty of room in the Ecto 1. you can stretch your legs back there.
It's not a time machine.
No, but it's a cool movie car. And you don't really need a specific car for
like
that.
The siren.
Any type of hearse you could probably convert into an Ecto 1 and get away with it. You don't need the specific, model. I don't think.
That's true.
Whereas a DeLorean, you need a DeLorean. You can't just,
I've always been a fan of the 60s television version of the Batmobile with the red detailing.
Okay.
And the fire in the back. It's a car that's enormous also.
I think
back when cars were the size of houses.
Obviously it's not real, but I do prefer the animated series Batmobile if I'm picking one.
I guess you can design something a bit more interesting that way, but what is real. It's practical.
Well, yeah, but to be fair though, the Batman movies for the most part, the Tumbler was more of a practical, vehicle in the sense that it was more of a tank, but the rest of them.
I was never a fan of Tumbler.
I think it's all right. What movie Batmobile do you like?
Movie Batmobile?
Yeah.
I don't know. I am genuinely a fan of the 60s one.
Okay.
I don't know. I definitely don't like the fin. The one with the really big fin.
Forever? Batman Forever?
Yeah, I think that one has... Yeah, I think that was too much.
I'll take it over the one from the one after that,
I don't need it to look like a shark.
Batman and Robin was far too bright. They had it was just decked out with neon.
Oh yeah. Yeah, probably the early Burton ones then. I really do like the 60s one.
Okay. I think the 60s one's just too much of a normal car for me.
No, I think it's fun design.
It's not unique enough versus
It's got the old future disc around the back of each passenger. You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
It looks almost like a jet.
Yeah, I know
I like the cockpit of a jet.
Yeah.
I like those.
Oh dear, what an episode of weird tangents this has been. So yeah, the movie yeah, we should rate it basically. We're at that point for the most part. Time After Time is a fine film. I think it's perfectly watchable. I think I say this about a lot of movies, but it feels like a really good Sunday afternoon movie to put on while you're doing some dishes or something. Watch it when you're doing some chores. It's the perfect movie for that because it is a little bit slow paced, so you can kind of take it in and sort of do other things while you're watching it without missing much. Like, you know, it's not like super like hyperkinetic with those little details at every 2 minutes that you really have to pay attention to. But it's not like great, because I think, you know, when it got back to the Ripper stuff towards the end, I was kind of finding myself wishing that they hadn't kind of like made me take this so lighthearted, you know, for most of the movie, because like I almost wish that I did feel the threat of this Ripper going around and this other person from the past. Basically, I mean, to go back to Demolition Man, I was kind of wanting like almost a gritty 70s Demolition Man, like set in the 70s from these people from the past, and I thought that'd have been really cool and fun, but I can't really berate it too hard for not being exactly like the better version in my head that I can imagine, because it's a fine, fun film. I'm not surprised the TV show on CBS completely, you know, or ABC, whatever network it was, like I don't know like what they were thinking trying to draw out, because they did basically the whole movie's plot more or less in the first double episode, barring I think Jack the Ripper was still around, and it was like, no, he's like the nemesis who's out there kind of thing. But it was all these, you know, young, sexy people. It was all, you know, TV crap. It was TV crap with no weight to it. So, Tara, what would you give, if you want to sum up your thoughts, what would you give Time After Time?
Well, I agree. It is kind of like an afternoon watch. I think it does sort of land in between these. It feels almost like an older film, that like older from when it was released. Yeah,
it doesn't feel like it belongs in the same year as Alien and Mad Max and stuff. It feels like it's
so it almost, yeah, it feels like something that came out a little bit before then, like it's a transitional film into the more modern films. And
it feels like a 60s sci-fi movie. I mean, I know it's set in 1979, but it feels like a 60s sci-fi movie.
I think it does too, but it has the dialogue and the scenes that take place in the more modern time was, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a movie that's not in the right time also. Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
But I do really enjoy watching it, and I really like the love story. I think the concept of it is kind of bizarre, but really brilliant, and I don't know. I really like this movie.
That's for now.
I also love I read that the director kept Malcolm McDowell and I forgot her name, Mary Steenburgen apart. They never met each other before. The first time that they meet in the scene, so that he can get like a real reaction from him, and they actually did fall in love, and they got married like after they met on this movie, and like the chemistry is real. And that's kind of sweet.
I did not know that. Obviously didn't last.
Yeah, they were married for like 10 years.
Obviously didn't last though, because I know her as Ted Danson's wife, so clearly at some point it broke down. Because he married her in the 90s. At the
time, you know, that love, I think, was on screen. Like, I really liked their chemistry.
Yeah, well, they
were really cute together.
Ted Danson and her get married in the 90s, and they were still married as of one of the later seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't know if they're still married, but I suspect they probably are, because they've been together a long time.
Well, I'm glad at least one of them found love later. But yeah, I don't know. I think this movie is really fun. You're right, it's not great, but it's worth watching. I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Oh, that's fair, 7.5. I think it's kind of kitsch. Am I saying that right? Kitsch, yeah. I think it's that, and I think if you're into this era of old sci-fi movies and you like that kind of feeling, I think you'll have some fun with it. I know I do. I mean, I like this kind of feeling of sci-fi, but this one definitely feels like it's lacking bite, you know? Like, I think, again, compare it to Alien, which obviously it shares nothing plot-wise with Alien, but just in the sense that Alien felt like this huge step forward. I feel like this, like, so enamored world that was new and dark and fresh but dangerous, and this movie, by its contrast, feels like a light jaunt. Feels like, someone had a fun little idea, they did a light jaunt in the park of a movie, and that's okay, but it's not got the bite that a lot of other better sci-fi does, and I think that's what kind of separates it. But it's a fine time. It's a fun little enjoyable thing for what it is. So I would give it a 7. It's good. It's not great, it's good. 7 out of 10.
Okay.
You can't be too mad at me. So it's only half a point lower than yours. You can't actually be that mad at me.
I'm not mad. Why should I be mad at you?
I'm not mad. I'll kill anyone who says I'm mad. I'm actually.
Don't call me crazy. I kill your whole family. Call me crazy.
Yeah, I was kind of changing that because the classic version of that I really like is like, I'm not crazy and I'll kill anyone who says I am. I love that quote.
Mine was from Werewolf, from the Mystery Science Theater version of Werewolf.
I actually don't know what mine's from, but I know it's from something. But it's been ingrained in my mind for so long now that I've forgotten. I have no idea what it's from. But yeah, I'm not crazy and I'll kill anyone who says I am. It's definitely from something. I know a character says it in something, but I couldn't tell you what. I could probably Google it maybe. Maybe it'll come up, but maybe not. But yeah. This has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. We have been talking about time after time. And
time after time.
I'm going to tell you what we're going to do next week on the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I can also tell you that by now you definitely should have the bonus movie on Patreon for the month of November, because this will be at December by the time this goes up now. You should have Rotor up for your enjoyment, because we're recording that very soon at the time of recording this. And we can tell you that your bonus movie at the $1 tier on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV in the month of December, we agreed upon a Christmas themed movie. So patrons will get us reviewing Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Whoop whoop. And not the Mystery Science Theater version.
No, we're doing it raw. Yeah, we're doing it raw. We're doing I was going to put it in a really crude way, but it's going to be rough, right? That's all I'm saying. It's going to be rough. So I can also tell you that next week on the regular episode we will be doing The Endless, which has been a requested movie for a while actually, and I've been wanting to watch it for a while. So
no idea what this is. Going in blind.
I believe it is completely different from Time After Time. I think it's more of a visceral indie sci-fi movie from the last few years. So something completely different, so we can jump around a little bit. So that's what's coming up next week. So let us know what you think of the movie, Time After Time, in the comments below. And you can ding the bell on YouTube as well. Make sure you get the notifications. You can support us, of course, by rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. Helps us out a lot if you do that, because more people will find us. We already mentioned Patreon, of course, a couple of times, so go and check out Patreon. Get us on Twitter at Mail. Well, you can get us on Twitter at Mailed_Fuzz for the channel in general and everything we do. You can get us on Twitter specifically though at the Ace Podcast, and you can check out other content we have. Tara, promote something from Mail Fuzz that you'd like to promote.
Well, you and I are going through the Twilight Zone. If you guys like old sci-fi, you can check out that.
For some reason, because you paused there, that's really awkward moment. I thought you were going to say, well, me and you are going through a rough patch, so... You just paused this really weird moment.
That's every week.
Yes, we're reviewing Twilight Zone.
Things are not healthy right now.
You can check
We're taking some time apart.
You can check out the horror movie podcast that I do with Tim, Screams After Midnight.
We stay together for you guys.
For the kids, yes. For all the kids at home. So you can go check out that. Me and Tim have got over 300 episodes. In fact, we're actually very close to 400 at this point.
Well,
in fact, coming up this May, I believe, is the 5th anniversary of Screams After Midnight. So,
what?
We'll have to do something special. I know. It's a big deal.
Now, what is that? Like paper, gold? I don't know what the 5th anniversary gift is supposed to be.
I don't know.
Do you guys have to renew your vows?
Who wants to remember all this stuff? Just, I don't know, have some anniversary sex and move on with your lives. Like, I don't, like, let's not put so much thought into it.
Hey, that's a good bonus bit.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Check out all the content we have, of course. And yeah, that's been Time After Time. Time After Time. So yes, is there anything else I need to tell you? I don't think so. I think that is it. I think I've done all my outro stuff. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction films, guys, and computer at Salsa.
Time after time.